Welcome back everyone. So in this video we'll be discussing about the default shapes, like there are rectangle, ellipse, um, rounded rectangle, circle and capsule. Yeah, these are the 5 default shapes that SwiftUI provides by default. So on the screen you can see I already have a rectangle and this is how it looks. So we have added a color to the rectangle and then we have added a stroke to the rectangle. So you can see the code, it's pretty simple. First we have a rectangle, then we can use dot fill to add the color. So this is how we added the color to red. You might have seen that normally in all the elements we use foreground color. Similarly here also, in case of rectangle we can also use foreground color. That will have the same effect just like we had for with the fill. So if we do the foreground color, you can see that still the UI looks same. If we change it to, let's say, purple. So yeah, so foreground color and dot fill modifier both work the same on default shapes. The other thing is we can also add a stroke to the shape. So here you can see we added a stroke of blue color to the rectangle, and to add a stroke there is an option of dot overlay. So we can add an overlay modifier to add a stroke to the rectangle. So when we do overlay, we have to pass our content, and in the overlay we can pass our rectangle with a stroke. So let's just remove this code and try to implement it by ourselves. Okay, so first of all we'll remove this overlay, and we will keep the frame and foreground color. So when you add overlay, we have different options. Yeah, we have different options. You can see overlay style, overlay content, overlay style and shape. So let's choose the content, and in this content we want to pass a rectangle. So we can take a rectangle and we can add a stroke to this, and when we select stroke style you can see we have different options like line width, dash and meter limit. So let's just use stroke style with line width. So line width is used to add a border with some value. Let's say I make this value as 5. So you can see a black stroke with the width of 5. We can even change it to 10. Yeah. What if we want to directly apply this stroke to this rectangle instead of creating a new overlay and then adding a new rectangle? So let's just try to do this. So you will see that it is not letting us add a stroke directly to the rectangle, because if we want to do this we will have to remove this foreground color. We cannot directly apply stroke and foreground color at the same time. Either we have to use a stroke or either we have to use a foreground color. So if we want to keep them both, we want to keep the foreground color as well as the stroke. So in this case we can do this overlay. So that's why I added an overlay and then added a stroke. So this is a hack actually. So this is how we can add a stroke as well as keep the foreground color. Yeah. So we discussed about the foreground modifier, the fill modifier and this stroke modifier. Now as there are different shapes in SwiftUI, like we discussed about rectangle, there is also, let's just list all of them. So we have rectangle, capsule, third one is circle, fourth is rounded rectangle, and fifth one is ellipse. Alright, so we already discussed about this rectangle. Let's just copy and create the same elements and see how they look. So we have created 5 and just replace this rectangle with capsule, the other one with circle, the other one with rounded rectangle, and the fifth one ellipse. Let's see how they look. So you can see when we are creating rounded rectangle, is asking for a parameter named corner size, because as we are saying that the rectangle will be rounded, that's why we also need to provide the corner radius to it. So instead of using corner size, which accepts CG size, we can use corner radius, and here we will give the value as 10. Let's just remove these overlays for now because it's looking all same. Alright, so you can see these are the default shapes, and all the properties that you can apply to one shape can be applied to other shapes too, just like we did with the stroke. So yeah, that's pretty it for this lecture. In the next lecture and in the upcoming lectures, we'll be discussing about the custom shapes. Like these are the default shapes. What if we want to create a custom shape? Then for this, we have also a option provided by SwiftUI, which we will be discussing in later part of the course.